Well, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. I'm Anah Parreli, and of course, I create the videos here. If you're new to the channel, I'll just give you a bit of a breakdown. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge whether you're new or whether you're returning, thank you for being part of my journey. And just a reminder to everybody, the information I share on this channel is information that I've gathered along the way through my own personal experience, conversations with other people about their experiences using crystals, and to add, I guess, a little bit of expansion to it, I do some Googling and research, particularly when it comes or to the things like the mineral content, because I'm not a geologist. And to be frank, I'm not really hung up and stuck on the geology type information, only as far as the relevance that it might be to me as a buyer and potentially you, as part of assuring our purchasing, the quality of purchases, I guess. And anyway, where I'm going with this is I invite you to make your own comments, experiences. I mean, you might even know where there's sources where we can actually buy some really good quality material at affordable prices. The other thing is, if you're new to the channel, you may not be aware that I do tend to go down tangents. I try and keep as natural as possible with the videos because I'm really not into AI, and I actually personally have a preference for perfect humans, if you like. And I don't see the necessity to be trying to be more impressive or putting on a show for people. Okay, that's not what I'm about. I'm about sharing information and being real with you. So anyway, I go off on tangents like I just did. I do the transcripts and then I end up having a waffle. So to accommodate the waffling, if people are short of time, I put timing stamps in the description of the video so you can just jump to the area of interest for you, because I recognize that time is a premium for everybody. The other thing that I would like to ask before I get into it is, if you find any of the content useful, if you could just give us a thumbs up, that would be really great. Of course, subscribers, I love subscribers. Who doesn't when you've got your channel? But I recognise not everybody wants to be spammed out with notifications and that kind of thing. But yeah, if you could just give us a like or a thumbs up, that would be really appreciated. Anyway, on with the content for today, because today we're talking about honey calcite. I really like honey calcite, and it's been part of my collection for years, and I still have some here. And I've got some new stuff coming, some rough. So when I talk about honey calcite, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. And this is actually a really interesting image, because although these spheres that we're looking at here, they are enlarged in a photograph. But I've seen spheres. I was just thinking how to describe this. A friend of mine used to sell crystals, and he had some amazing product in his business, if you like. And one of them included honey calcite and all sorts of spheres that were, 4 or 5 kilos, great big whoppers of them. And the beauty of them with this image is actually showing where you see the streak of white. If you were holding that in your hand, if you had it in front of you, it actually looks like a little plane. It's called kind of a little crackly. And that's the kind of plane that I've known people that do scrying, that focus on that little crackle. And you can do it. It doesn't have to be clear quartz crystal balls or whatever, but you can do this with any crystal that's got a plane on it if you've actually got your clairvoyancy developed. Anyway, that was my first distraction for today. Let's have a sense of humour. The idea, the actual aim of showing this photograph off was to show you the colour. You can see here, it really does have a honey colour to it. And as with honey that you buy in the jars, if you know anybody that produces honey actually does come in different shades. It can be quite pale and it can be a little bit darker, but it still has this real honey look about it. And this is what we're looking at here. Now, from a chakra perspective, it's supposed to work with your base chakra, your solar plexus, obviously the navel chakra, and your third eye, your brow chakra. Now, point of interest here, I think I'm going to deviate away from the chakra content and speak about the aura. In regard to auras, most people think of the aura as being white or having rainbow type colours swirling through it, which is actually correct. But when you're attempting to connect to the higher realms, this is my understanding, open to correction. When you're attempting to connect with your higher realms, the angels and the guides, my understanding is that you actually visualize and focus on getting your aura, as opposed to the white being, if you flick back to the other slide where I've got the three calcite spheres, there is one that is a paler golden yellow that's on the right, and that would be the color, I believe, that you're aiming to bring into your aura when you're attempting to make those connections. So just a little thought there. But I think it's probably because of that color and the connection to the higher realms through the aura that we're looking at the development of the third eye, the brow chakra, with the honey calcite, as I stumble over my words. I'm calling honey calcite to be a stone of empowerment, and that's because of its associations with the solar plexus. The solar plexus is considered to be your personal power space. It's a space where we learn to trust, have faith, hold on to hope, build self-confidence. All of that kind of thing is actually centered there. So it's a power chakra. So I guess the challenge with that is too, it's quite often, and I was like it back in the day too, where it's, I have problems trusting other people, and I don't even trust my own judgment, but I do trust my guides, that kind of thing was back in the day. Well, honey calcite is really good for working with that and helping to heal that solar plexus. What else can I say? Obviously on the slide here, I've got that it's beneficial because these associations that I've put on the slide, they are associated with the solar plexus, which is about being able to manifest, about magnetizing wealth and abundance toward you, about strengthening your willpower, being able to commit to something. If people have got commitment issues, it's actually usually in that yellow chakra area, and it's supposed to build endurance, strength, and vitality. Just having a look at my notes here. This is actually not really so much related to honey calcite, but it would be very, very good for when I try and describe the power aspect. I'm going to refer back to it because there's a little story I put in my notes, and it was about power and trying to understand what power is. Power is about choices, and quite often in life we don't have a lot of choices there, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a choice. And so the scenario, or the little note that I had on the side, was when I was doing my counselling degree, we were doing some group activity. I can't remember the whole details, but the lecturer put it to us. He said, do the victims of DV have any power? Right? It was a straight up question. Now, a little difficulty for me within that is, of course, I'm 20 odd years down the track of having left a DV relationship, and I believe straight off the bat what I will tell you shortly, but in a classroom environment, when you've got a lot of young people there, and a lot of the time people have to find their answers themselves through exploration rather than being told the answers. And in this particular scenario, I just remembered, okay, the lecturer's comment was, do victims of DV choose to stay in their violent relationships or not? All right. So, of course, it offended all the young folk, shall we say, who were like, oh my goodness, that's just so disrespectful to people that have, been in abusive relationships, blah, 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 blah. Get on the defensive. However, me sitting in the class, and because I've done a lot of reflection on it over the years, I was able to turn around and say, and this might be stark to a few people, okay, is that I believed I did have a choice, but I chose to stay, but not because I was a fool, but because actually my options were very limited to get out of it. And so sometimes while we do make a choice, they're not necessarily healthy choices because we haven't got anything else, that's open to us. And of course that was quite confrontational for the young people in the group to hear me say that, but it was exactly what the lecturer wanted to hear. And that's not about blaming the victims for staying there, but recognising, no, I suppose because we can go through these situations and feel that we've been complete and utter victims. But I think moving on and healing is actually recognizing we did have a choice, but we did have very limited options. And sometimes it can take a lot of planning to actually get out of those situations and to stay safe, you know. Just this might actually be a bit of a triggering thing for anybody that's listening to this. And if that's the case, you probably need some honey calcite. Before I talk about the zodiac, I probably should expand on this business of choices when people find themselves in difficult relationships, such as abusive ones. And that is that where the comment happened within my studies about women and DV and having choices, I would define it as most women will find themselves in that situation of the choice is a rock and a hard place. That's what we call it in Australia. But either way, there is a choice involved, even if they're fairly bleak ones. And it's from there, we talk about that, I guess, if we were to associate it with the chakras, that's a very base chakra decision or choice to be made. And from there, we go into the orange chakra, which is where we choose to be creative and look for those solutions to be able to get ourselves out. Now, of course, every situation is going to be different. Every person's got an individual story. Some people don't necessarily have any choice at all as far as being able to escape and get away from unhealthy situations. You know, I mean, if you're in a war zone, I guess the choice is to move from spot A to spot B to try and avoid any risks. But anyway, they're just a couple of scenarios. Back to the zodiac, though, you can see here on this screen, I've put up a number of different star signs. And this is because in the course of doing my research, I found that there was a lot of recommendations for different star signs to use honey calcite. Now, if you're new to the channel, you won't actually realise my position around zodiac associations with crystals, and that is that, you know, if you feel drawn, it's always better to hold a crystal in your hand. And if you feel energy from it, then it probably needs to be part of your collection. And that's a good sign or indicator to make that purchase. If, on the other hand, you're buying online and you feel drawn to it because of the colour or because of what you see, as I mentioned in the first slide, there was one that had a nice little plane on it. If you see planes and you think you want to explore scrying, then that might be the crystal for you. You don't allow your star sign to deter you from buying a crystal that you actually feel that you need or you must have as part of your growth and development. Yeah, and just because you're a star sign shouldn't say to you, oh, I need that one because that's my star sign. Because at the end of the day, from my perspective, most of the links and associations are based on our beliefs and our perceptions. And somebody that might have been working with crystals longer may come to a viewpoint that in their observations they've seen people with a certain star sign get the benefits. But it's not one size fits all, even with zodiac. So just use your own discretion. As far as rarity goes, honey calcite, and in fact I think all the calcites are fairly common, so they're not super expensive. They tend to be affordable, but they are soft. So if you look at this, it's a 3, so that's very soft on the hardness score. It comes in these ranges of colours, and we're going to look a little bit more at the colours in the upcoming, well, the next slide actually. So it can be really yellow, it can be golden, it can have amber hues to it. And it tends to be translucent. It can be opaque. What we mean by that is, of course, you can hold up to the light and see the light pass through it. The opaque, you can't see any light through it. It does, I would say it's got a waxy texture as well, because a lot of the calcite, when you're looking at it, and honey calcite is no different depending on the form that you find. If it's in the rough, you look at it and you feel like you could actually scratch it with your fingernail. But of course it doesn't, because it is a rock and it's fairly solid. As far as toxicity goes, I don't know if there's any trace minerals in it. So as far as I'm aware, there's no toxicity to it. Where I say that the rough stuff looks a bit waxy, when honey calcite and most of the calcites are actually polished, they can have a little bit of a glassy type look about them. The other thing to remember though is because it's very soft, It's also a bit on the brittle side, so it can actually break fairly easily. So as far as the buying tips go, it's always stock standard. Find out the dimensions of what it is that you're buying, especially if you're looking online. Okay, if you're in a shop and you're handling it, you know exactly what you're buying for your money. But if you're buying online, sometimes things like spheres can actually be really tiny. So you want to know the diameter, you want to know the weight. You know, if it's a sphere, if it's a tower or something like that, obviously you want to have the dimensions and that kind of stuff. You would also want to take a look at the currency conversions, if there's any hidden costs, what the cost of the item is after tax when you're buying online, and if there's any platform fees, and take a look at the shipping costs as well, because you might find that it's actually easier and cheaper to buy it locally than from overseas. The other thing too, what I've done with this slide is show you a couple of different colours, because actually all of these crystals were marketed as honey calcite. But you can see here that you've got the amber calcite, which is like a darker brown to it. It's honeyish. I can understand people making a bit of a mistake with that one. The yellow calcite, though, is different to the honey calcite that you see on the left-hand side, that sphere, and it's more vibrant. So with the honey calcite that's yellowish, it doesn't have the same vibrancy and depth, I guess, if we're talking about yellow calcite. Yellow calcite is actually quite buttery, yellow butter look about it, and the orange calcite, as you see, has got more of the orange hues to it. They're not amber, they're not honey calcite at all. The piece that I've got here, I've got a sphere, and it would probably be more like the sphere on the left-hand side, but just a little shade darker, shall we say. The other thing to make a point of with calcite is actually the fact that it is difficult to cut. And I'm going to go to my notes here, because I've made the point here that you can see in the second sphere to the left. If you look closely at that, you might need to magnify it. You're going to see that there's a cleavage in there, and that's where it's like there's a line going down, sort of halfway, and then you've got another one that would be what I refer to as the plane. They're called the cleavages, and generally calcite apparently has a cleavage that goes in 3 directions. This is the relevance for people like you and me that are buying, because it talks to us about how we've got to care for it. Those are the areas that are most likely to break and split if we were to drop it or to treat it poorly. And it's also those cleavages that can make it difficult for people to carve it. So if you were looking to buy a pendant or whatever, you would want to see on the pendant, is there any cleavage in that? Because as you can see looking at the sphere, there's parts of it are free of the cleavage, if that makes sense. Either way, I just want to say the fact that the cleavage is there doesn't mean that it is a poor quality calcite. In fact, I believe that it enhances it, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. So I just love crystals, and if they've got a cleavage or the planes, I love them all the more. So looking at the metaphysical attributes in greater detail, what we can see here, where of course I've mentioned it again as being a stone of empowerment, it is believed to clear the aura of any attachments, negative attachments, and that could be negative entities or negative energy that is sitting within your aura. It's believed to provide emotional balance, to balance out the yin-yang aspects of self. That's the feminine and masculine, what we also call the individual polarities. It's believed to support grounding ideas. Basically, I'm pausing over this as I think about how to explain this. It's not grounding in the traditional sense of the base chakra, where we go off with the fairies or whatever, and we use a grounding stone to stop us going off with the fairies. From my perspective, I see that the grounding attributes are those about bringing ideas into reality. You've got to have a practical approach when you're attempting to manifest. It can't all just be sitting out there and visualizing and thinking about what the world would look like in a perfect world. You've got to actually take proactive actions with that. So that's where I see the grounding come in. Speaking of manifestation, definitely supposed to help turn those dreams and ideas into a reality, of course. So it's really good for accomplishing high effort tasks and projects from an energy perspective. Okay, so we are looking at the spiritual attributes. That would be the physical aspect of manifestation, but you've got to energize it first. So this is where the honey calcite would come in. It promotes a person pushing themselves forward to completing what they start. It's beneficial for meditation, to help a person to explore those subconscious beliefs about self and to remove mind clutter, and if somebody suffers from mind chatter. But I probably should have been speaking about those on the page for emotions. But either way, it's supposed to support a person to connect to their guides, attract opportunities from a magnetic perspective as part of that manifestation. Like I was saying, if a person finds themselves in a situation where their back is up against the wall, then you would work with honey calcite to actually attract the opportunities that you can use to create and manifest, if that makes sense. It is believed to protect and act as a shield against any low or negative vibrations. And when we talk about shielding, we're talking about once you've purified the aura, you then put a shield around it. Believed to open up a person to developing their psychic gifts or to enhance them. Believed also to support astral projection. Intuition or gut instinct, I would say, is a big one for this, because a lot of the time people actually don't want to go and develop those higher chakras, such as the third eye. They don't want to be getting visions or hearing voices in their head. And in fact, for some people, it's kind of contraindicatory, in which case you can use honey calcite to work on that gut instinct, that just inner knowing where you just know the next course of action. I just thought I would explain there that when I say for some people it's contraindicatory to work on the brow chakra, which is your clairvoyance and that kind of thing, those would be the people that are quite unstable and probably have a diagnosis of schizophrenia or delusions or whatever, because they are unable to discern between the reality and truth of the visions that they're seeing and what is fear-based stuff. So that's not to say that they're locked into never developing it. It just means until they are stable, that it would be discouraged for them, or very much a case of approach with caution. You work on the chakras one by one. So speaking of working on the chakras, say somebody with schizophrenia or something like that, they could certainly work with honey calcite, because it will help to clear the blockages in their energy system, which is what we want to see happen, and also to recalibrate the chakras and increase their personal vibration. It is attached, or apparently the spiritual attributes are also associated with Mother Earth through this stabilizing, unifying and connecting the heart and the mind, aligning the behavior to a desired outcome. So overall, it does support harmony, inner harmony, and an energetic, if I can speak, equilibrium. And of course, that provides the pathway to greater peace. Now, before we talk about the physical attributes, of course, we've got to do the disclaimer that you would not disengage from your health professionals and rely on crystals to treat your health conditions. What you can do is use your crystals as a complement with your existing treatment plan, but always speak with your doctor if you've got some concerns. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this slide, because I've tried to put all the content up here, but I will go into some of them. As far as circulatory system goes, it is believed to support heart and cardio health, things like blood regulation, blood flow, and to prevent blood clotting and heart palpitations. From a metabolic perspective, it's supposed to support the conversion of nutrients and minerals to energy, as well as distributing and regulating these minerals throughout the body to the organs. Also believed to be beneficial for toxification. So if you've got liver issues, you might want to do a liver cleanse. You could use your honey calcite for that. From a general perspective, it's supposed to strengthen the body organs and support good health there with things like the gallbladder, the heart, the kidney, and reproductive. Just to put this into perspective, if you go back and take a look at the sacral chakra and the base chakra, the way you identify the areas or of the body that the physical attributes apply to is actually looking at the body organs. This is a general guide, sitting in that chakra area. So, of course, the yellow definitely associated with the liver. What else have I got? Supposed to support kidney health as well. If people have got renal problems, yes, they could probably wear it or work with it, keep some beside the bed. If people have got reproductive issues, it's also supposed to be beneficial there, particularly in regard to fertility. And if women are pregnant, to support a healthy pregnancy and through the childbirth. If you suffer from constipation, it's supposed to help alleviate that. And digestive problems and disorders. It's supposed to strengthen the intestines, which is actually good, I think, for those of us that are aging. As we become older, things like the digestive system start to become a bit sluggish. Believed to benefit the eyes, the ears, the nose, and the tongue, to improve sensory perception, both physical and metaphysical. Okay, from the skeletal perspective, it's supposed to fortify bone growth, and because you've got improved calcium absorption, it should theoretically eliminate any calcium deficiencies and strengthen your teeth, okay? If you've got skin disorders, it's supposed to rejuvenate and soothe them. As far as your tissues and muscles go, well, it's supposed to work on the connective tissues, which assist with the mobility problems that might be there, as well as physical flexibility. What else have I got? Prevents drowsiness, lethargy, and laziness is more in the mind, but supposed to build on stamina and endurance. So when we talk about the emotional attributes, you can see here, of course, once again, a great list and range of them. One thing I haven't put on here, though, is it's supposed to be recommended for people that are trying to learn new things. So it would be recommended for students, and is believed to support improved intellectual and analytical thinking styles. So that's really good for when we're trying to gain the new skills. And as far as the memory goes, it's supposed to benefit memory recall and to retain the new information, and also to be able to think constructively. That's the positive thinking, and even critically, because to be a critical thinker doesn't mean that you're a negative thinker. It just means that actually you don't swallow everything that you're told at face value. You will actually try to find the truth for yourself. What else have I got? Obviously recommended for when you're starting new projects, or because if you're trying to manifest something, you want to be able to get that project off the ground, so it's supposed to motivate for that. Also believed to support honest communication and healthy communication with the people around you, but particularly in a group setting. So that would actually be really good for a workplace where there's a lot of tension and a communication breakdown. So it's believed to strengthen the relationships and the bonds between people, whether it's a group, whether it's at home, family relationships, that kind of stuff, and to promote a willingness to work through problems in peaceful ways. The big one, of course, is that it helps to build your self-image, your self-love, your self-acceptance, and trust in your own decision-making. And this has the ongoing effect of improving a person's self-esteem, as well as confirming or validating to a person that they have what it takes to complete their goals. So it gives a bit of a boost there. So the ways that we can use it is actually very varied as well, because as you see here, you've got some towers. So while it is soft, it would be the carvers that have the problems with doing the carving, but we can use it as an ornament. We can have it rough or in the carved form. I've got both of it around actually, and I've got some rough honey calcite coming soon, and I'll be sure to retain some of that here at home for me. But anyway, yes, you can keep it in the environment for doing that ambient energy clearing. If you're trying to connect to higher realms or work with any of the emotional or physical attributes, well, yeah, you could meditate while holding it. If you're into gridding, you could certainly keep it as part of your grid. You could have it as tumbled stones for that. You can have it as a jewelry item. Obviously, the carvers are going to be selective about which part of their raw or rough material that they do the carvings from, especially if it's for pendants or talismans or whatever, which is another good way to use it. But yeah, you would want to have a look at that before buying, or at least if you're buying online, try and get them to show you a close-up of what the actual the gem in the pendant or talisman looks like. Just a tip here, if you're looking for support with manifesting, then you want more of the, how would I describe it? If you're looking for colour hues, you want to have a blend of the darker honey calcite and the lighter honey calcite. You want it to be sort of mid-range. If you're looking to connect with the higher realms, you want something that's more mid-range to that yellow colour, because that's part of the connective process, if I can speak process. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because, of course, my little boy dog is now running around the house and he's doing whizzies. It's the zoomies. He's zooming past with his squeaky toy, if you hear that. So despite the fact that the boyo is doing zoomies on wooden floorboards and it sounds a bit more thunderous, as far as the message goes, I did type in my transcript. It's about manifestation. The message would be that each of us, and that would be you, if somebody put their hand into my little tumble bowl where I've got all my tumbles for the crystal messages, it would be a reminder that they are perfectly capable of manifesting, that they've got what it takes, and it is a matter certainly of committing to the task. And if they have aligned their will with divine will, it's going to happen, okay? But the other thing is that with my boy doing his thumpies, I thought, look, there's another message of honey calcite, which is basically never give up, right? You whatever it is that you are hoping for and aiming for, do not give up, because hold faith, hold on to hope, and trust in the universe processes and follow your guidance. The difference between never giving up, right, is learning when to hold on and when to let go, and also not to dictate how the blessings come to us. So let's say that you're trying to manifest a car or a home or whatever. Some people will tell you, write down a list of what it is that you're looking to manifest. But if you make that list too detailed, then you basically put a barrier in, because it's kind of conditional. So you would focus on what you need as opposed to what you want, and then that becomes the first stepping stone. So let's say you need a house, I focus on the perfect house in the perfect area, in the perfect way, under grace, in the divine way, at the divine time, and then you let the universe take care of it. Okay, so that's my suggestion or message here. Where the crystal care comes in, obviously I've already mentioned that it's soft, so if you're going to have tumbled stones and pop them in your bra, as many of us ladies do, this would be one of those that you want to be very, very careful that you actually don't drop it on the bathroom floor. However, what I find as a good method of wearing crystals these days is actually to have the tumble. It also saves a fortune. You're not buying crystals in silver settings anymore. You can alternate and change. I use the tumbled stone in the macrame, where you can just interchange them. You go, I'll work with honey calcite today, tomorrow I'll work with whatever, and you just change it out, and you can rest your crystals in between wearing. So caring for them, obviously, if I've been working with a crystal, I will always do a cleanse. By the way, while I think about that, whether it is rough or whether it is polished calcite, it's going to be okay if for most of them, unless it's got the druzy. I actually need to be careful here. Use your common sense. If it needs to be washed, if it's collected dust or something like that, the best solution is actually to use your dust cloth. But sometimes you may need to wash them, in which case, yes, it will cope with a certain amount of water, but dependent on the way the calcite is formed, then you might need to dry it off, and you wouldn't leave it submerged for any great length of time. If you've got jewelry, I'm not sure that I would take the risk with those ultrasonic cleansers. You always want to be gentle with your crystals anyway. What else would I say? If you're into the metaphysical and you do the recharging, for me, if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that I'm a big fan of selenite for all things clearing, cleansing, purifying and recharging. It will cope definitely with being put out in the rain and being put out under the moonlight, if you like to put them out under a full moon. What I have learned the hard way is do not leave them if you are in Australia. Do not leave them on your windowsill exposed to the bright, harsh summer conditions of Australia, because what happens is it does discolour. And the ones that I had, well, one of them is a sphere. It's a beautiful sphere. It was one anyway. Anyway, because I got slack and didn't look after my crystals for a while and didn't check them, I did observe that by the time I paid attention to it, where it had previously been pure and clear and a really good quality honey calcite sphere, one side of it is now opaque because of being exposed to the sunlight, if you don't mind. Just a little bit discoloured, but it's just lost a lot of that brilliance. It's been absolutely sunbaked. That's about all I can give you in regard to crystal care information. But if you've got any tips, please do feel free to add your contributions down below in the comments. Whether it's on any of the information I've given, I'm open to be challenged, I'm open to different viewpoints, and I'm open to learning. And until I see any comments, and I will respond to all of them, because obviously, I think fortunately, I don't get a huge lot of comments, so it means that I've got more time to actually respond to them. Yeah, I will respond to any comments that go up, but in the meantime, that's all I can share with you. So for now, I'm going to say, look, thanks for being part of my journey. Again, have a wonderful day, blessed week. Take care of yourselves, and I shall catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.